So tonight I got off work a little bit earlier than I planned, thankfully, and I am super stoked about that. But it also brought to mind the topic of boundaries, because recently a lot of boundaries are being pushed. Like in the workplace, I had to set a boundary that what happens at work stays at work. Because sometimes when you mix work life and home life, it gets really difficult. And I'm not just saying with friendships, I'm saying in general. I had to tell people that I didn't want to be a part of the gossip, that I didn't want to deal with it, that if they wanted to talk about work, unless it was something very important, that they needed to leave it at work or call me when I'm on the clock. And I know for some people that's really hard, and for me especially, because I like to talk to people. I like to get to know them. But at the same time, you have to learn how to separate things out. So that's only one part of the boundaries. Like, I'm also setting those boundaries in my personal life, like with family and friends, and with the people that I interact with. But that also brings me to my next question for you guys. What's going on in your life? What are you doing to set your boundaries and set yourself up for success? Because you have to be growth-minded. In order to do anything in life, you really need to have a growth mindset, or things could be a little bit difficult for you. Because just floating in your day-to-day life, not knowing what your intentions are, not knowing where you want to go, not knowing what you want to do next, you're not doing anything for yourself. You're honestly setting yourself up for failure when you don't go to try and plan ahead. And I learned that the hard way. In fact, that is something I've been taught from a young age. I was always taught the 5 Ps. Proper planning prevents poor performance. And it's something that was literally ingrained into me from a young age. And so I always started planning. I started doing things to be proactive. Like I know one time, sorry, my skin itches. I just got off work and haven't had a time to hop in the shower. So now I'm very itchy. So yeah, sorry about that, guys. But anyways, as I was saying, like I remember in middle school, they tried to shove this book down my throat, and it's called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Now, for me, this method did not work, because if I don't see it being useful right away, or I don't see it as something that could connect right away in everyday life, then to me it just comes up as irrelevant. And that's not something, that I do on purpose. It's just something that is. But this book was like, you have to do these 7 things to be, effective, to be successful. When, honestly, I didn't need a book to tell me how to run my life. Because I was a teenager and already basically adulting before I was an adult. So for someone to sit there and be like, you have to do this to be successful, like, I didn't really like that, to be honest. And I struggled with that. And it wasn't an ego thing. It wasn't a pride thing. It was, I had a father at home that I had to worry about whether he was going to live or die. who I had to remind to eat, who I had to remind to take his medicine, who I had to make sure he was still doing okay. And then, while my stepmom worked, when she was around and when I wasn't dealing with a bunch of other issues, I was one who was a caretaker. And then it went from that to having my sister. She's I'm not fully gonna put her personal issues on blast like that, but let's just say she had a lot of issues, not only mentally, but in a lot of other ways as well. And so I was also raising children that were not mine from a very young age. So I always just found it difficult when someone tried to tell me when or how to live my life. Because on top of all of that, I also helped my dad with his lawn mowing business. And so growing up, I was already very much an adult by the time they tried teaching those lessons. I knew how to finance, I knew how to budget, I knew how to plan. I knew how to cook. I knew the necessities of being an adult. And for me, I couldn't exactly sit there and tell these adults that, because they wouldn't understand. But at the same time, it was very hard for me to sit there and listen to that and try and very much reason with them, because they didn't see how a young lady at the age of 13, 14 years old already would know how to do that. And I understand not everybody goes through that, or has been through that, and that's okay. That's not everybody's story. But what I'm saying is that sometimes, yes, it's good to give advice, but it's also really good to set those boundaries for yourself, especially if you know that you're not receptive to that kind of thing. And that you need to be where you're okay with being like, hey, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to do this. We're not going to do this. And I'm not going to allow this environment around me. You have to set yourself up to where you are the center of you. Not expecting everybody to bend to your will or to your way, because it's not going to happen. It won't. And that's okay. Because you have to have it to where even if someone else walks out of your life, you still have your circle of friends. You still have your life. You still have you. That you're not putting yourself in a place where you feel like you're nothing without them. It's okay for you to love and care about someone deeply. That's great. That's awesome. But you still have to have a separate life outside of them. And it might not be easy for you. And, you might have to start in little steps. But try and make sure to find pieces of yourself before you finding your significant other or whoever as your only source in your life. Because if you don't, when they're gone, you're not going to know what to do with yourself. And you're going to find yourself stuck and lost and lonely. And you don't want that. You need to be the best you for you. So no matter what happens, you have you. And you're not stuck struggling at the end of the day.